I would like to stand really to do a couple of things. Number one is in honor of the largest number of members of parliament from Egypt in the world are in jail now. They have been jailed for the past 4 years. It is the largest number in the world. And I would like also to stand in honor of the 6 American citizens who are in the jail of Sisi regime among 60,000 political prisoners. So in honor of those people, I'm standing up to share with you a couple of ideas in relation. Oh, thank you for standing up. I didn't mean I just wanted to stand up myself, representing all of you. Thank you. Thank you. That's very kind of you. Concerning the embrace of authoritarianism, I think we all will can agree that it is as old as many American traditions in relationship to the Arab and Muslim world. It is very unfortunate. There was an expectation during the Junior Bush administration. A couple of times it was mentioned by Condoleezza Rice. It was even mentioned by Junior Bush himself that they've been supporting those authoritarian regimes for the past 60 years, and it did not present the expectations they wanted them. Very recently in a congressional hearing, Lindsey Graham was saying we've been investing millions of dollars in the military regime in Egypt, and it is not producing the results. So there is this realization. That realization that was in the early 2000s, unfortunately, it did not walk the walk as it did talk the talk. If it continued with this self-realization that there is a need to end this support for authoritarian regimes, it did not continue until the Arab Spring took place. The Arab Spring was a golden opportunity, not only for Arabs and Muslims, but for the rest of the world to create a new relationship based on shared values. You remember Egyptians in Tahrir Square were calling for 4 values, very universal values. They were calling for exchange, freedom, social justice, and human dignity. That is what they were calling for. They didn't call anything against any country. They were very much interested in solving Egyptian problems and build the future in relationship to Europe and to the United States and to the rest of the world. It was really a golden opportunity. It is still there. It didn't die because the springs never die. They come again and again. And as long as the idea of exchange, social justice, freedom, and human dignity are there, the young Arabs, especially in Egypt, and I believe the rest of the Arab world, in Egypt, about 60% of Egyptians are under than the age of 30. So there is really a lot of hope in the future that the young Egyptians will be able, as they did it before, they will be able to do it again. But it is not. One thing, as a member of the Egyptian parliament myself, learned that it is not only, I used to think, honestly, I can confess, I was naive, that I thought Egyptian democracy is based mainly on Egyptians. I don't think it is the case. It has regional dimensions, and it also has international dimension. In the past, we used to believe in a myth that Arabs are not ready for democracy. After the Arab Spring, the truth is we've come to the realization that neither Europe nor the United States are ready yet for Arab democracy or for Muslim democracy. Yeah. Thank you. This is the real realization. And unless we change this, the Arab Spring should have changed 2 complexes. The first complex is an inferiority complex Arabs and Muslims suffer from. They thought they couldn't do it. Now when they moved to the streets, thanks to Tunisia, then Ben Ali escaped. Then the Egyptians said, let us go for it. Then they went for it. Mubarak had to leave. We believed in ourselves. First time we thought that we can do it. And we really, if we got the support and the assistance from the regional power, and the international power, we would have proven a very successful experiment for democracy, human rights, and rule of law. Unfortunately, after the results of democracy, things changed in Europe as well as in the United States. There was an expectation that a military alternative to democracy, benign one, similar to that of Mubarak, that can assure stability, may be better alternative than a democracy that can bring, quote unquote, troublemakers. And that was not really a good expectation. Very recently, the fact that of President Trump calling what Sisi did in Egypt was a fantastic, and I'm quoting here, fantastic job. I will tell you what a fantastic job Sisi did so that we all can judge this this terrible fantasy that we are talking about. In the past, from the time the military coup took place, about 37 massacres to political peaceful protesters in the streets of Egypt. Since the presidential decree number 136 of 2014, where the whole country became military camp. So any protest can be treated as opposition to the military. And in this case, the military can arrest anyone and put them on military courts. About 7,400 military trials to civilians. Hundreds of people came to be sentenced to death. Egypt has been deemed as a country in a human rights crisis, according to Human Rights Watch. The rights conditions have been on an alarming decline since the military coup of 2013. Mass silence and lack of accountability from the international community is a side effect to Islamophobia plaguing the world currently. That is something I came to this realization, that Islamophobia has a political dimension. It is not really only a religious or cultural dimension, but it has a political dimension. Very unfortunate that many in the leadership position in governments in Europe as well as in the United States feared a democracy that would bring so-called Muslim democrats to power. And this fear really, which was very irrational, caused this part of the world to lose its democracy to the old regime and to the military. Egypt is in a clear violation of every human rights covenant and the treaty it is party to. I don't want to mention all the parties, all the conventions that Egypt was party to, and it violated them all. Not only on the human rights level. There is no political space in Egypt now. Even the liberals are withdrawing or disappearing from the political scene. You cannot say something different. Even there is a law, if you report something different, you saw something in the streets, but the media or the military regime says something different. If you report what you saw, you can easily go to trial because you reported something different from the official position. And because of the political failure, human rights failure, there is economic failure. Egypt is considered to be #1 country on the misery index. It is the most miserable country in the Arab and Muslim world. It is dictatorship, it is corruption that leads to violence. State violence, state corruption leads to organized group violence. Both need to be condemned. When I spoke to Senator Tom Murphy about the relationship between ISIS. If you read ISIS from right to left, it reads Sisi. I didn't really mean it to be a joke, but I really meant it to be a reality. Because I believe that ISIS, as Dr. Aziza said, it's a political problem. And it is because of dictatorship. It is because of tyranny that tortures people in prisons. Now when you have 60 innocent political detainees in Egypt and they're being tortured. Jihad Haddad, for example, who is on hunger strike now, who wrote a piece to the New York Times. Now he is not allowed to have even his own medication. Look at the case of a young Egyptian who was the best among his schoolmates. He got his PhD from an American university in California. Then he led a political party. Then he won the election. Then he became a president of the country. Dr. Morsi, for the past 3 years, could not even meet any of his family members and could not meet any of his attorneys. If this is the case, if this is met with silence on the international community, what are we sending? What is the message we're sending to the hearts and minds of young Egyptians? If you go into democracy, this is what you're likely to end up with. But if you follow anything else, if you go into any other direction, you're okay, you can survive. Unfortunately, terrorism has become an industry. And tyranny needs terrorism. And terrorism needs tyranny to justify its own continuity. What do we do? Where do we go from the future? I don't have answers. I have questions. Can political forces in Egypt as well as in the Arab world join hands? What mistake we made on January 25th? We went against Mubarak regime. And that's what we were working against, but we did not know what we were working for. Now there is time where people are discussing, political parties are meeting in many different parts of the world, inside Egypt, outside Egypt. We formed a parliament outside of Egypt that I'm a member of. Can we meet on an agenda, a democratic agenda that presents a democratic alternative that can work on the local level, on the regional level, and international level? This is on the Egyptian side. On the international level side, can the United States of America demilitarize its foreign policy? Can it also desecuritize its relationship? It is the way to view political changes in the Muslim world. Lindsey Graham recently said it clearly, and I will conclude by this. I hope Egypt will take a new direction. Not march toward Putin, but march away from him. March back to the square where it all started. Thank you.